Ding dong, USAID is dead. Yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced officially that the United States Agency for International Development, the essentially taxpayer-funded front group for thousands of non-governmental organizations filled with crony capitalists, has ceased operations. We're pretty pleased about this. Good job, Doge. Now, there are others, as USAID has been wound down, who are not as happy about the end of the agency.
We also know this is just the beginning. If Doge attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS or even the Social Security Administration.
So these agencies don't deserve scrutiny? We're supposed to be afraid that there's actually somebody who cares about the American taxpayer who's looking for waste and abuse and legal graft, which permeates Washington, D.C. It's funny. People often, where's the fraud? Well, the thing is, if you legalize the fraud, then no one goes to jail, which, USAID basically is an organization where money from the taxpayers flowed through this organization, and then folks within USAID just doled out millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars in some cases, to pet projects and to people who are connected in their organizations. A member of the House, like their wife, sits on the board or is the CEO of some NGO somewhere doing something, and suddenly, a few $1 million just happens to head their direction. That's what USAID was all about. Of course, there are those who will tell you that that's not the case, that it actually had very noble goals.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is hailing the end of USAID, the nation's largest foreign aid agency, even as a new analysis finds that its closure could contribute to some 14 million deaths.
Nonsense. All right, just nonsense. And why anybody would listen to CNN at this point, post-COVID, is beyond me. Anyway, listen to what Marco Rubio has to say on the issue of foreign aid.
I will say this, even with the reforms we put in place and what we're suggesting is changes to our foreign aid, we still will provide more foreign aid, more humanitarian support than the next 10 countries combined, than the entire OECD, and far more than China. China doesn't do humanitarian aid. China does predatory lending.
This is a great point from Marco Rubio, kind of this good little tangent here. Yeah, China is essentially engaging in a form of debt colonialism all over the world. So what they do is they loan money to these developing countries to build like ports or airports or whatever. And then these poor countries can't pay them back. And then the Chinese default on them. And guess what? Then the Chinese have an airport or a base or a port.
That's what Belt and Road Initiative is. That's what all of their aid. They have zero record of doing humanitarian aid in the world. And frankly, they don't know how to do it. They have no interest in doing it. What they're very good at is going into some country, making you a loan, and then holding that debt over your head. And that's what...
This is excellent. We've been writing about this stuff for over a decade. We're very happy that Marco Rubio is paying attention to the ultimate crony capitalist state, China, and their shenanigans around the world. Obviously, he should be.
They continue to, and by the way, you have to hire a Chinese company to do it. So I don't agree with this assessment that there's no evidence whatsoever that China has either the capacity or the will to replace the U.S. in humanitarian assistance.
China has neither.
Food deliveries or in developmental assistance for that matter. We provide development assistance. They provide debt traps. And that's a point over and over again around the world that we've made, and we found receptive audiences to it. Now look, anytime you undertake reforms of this magnitude that needed to be made, you're going to have hiccups and you're also going to have controversy. But these reforms had to happen. At USAID, 12 cents of every dollar was reaching the recipient.
Let's put an exclamation mark on that statement. Only 12 cents of every dollar went to the people who needed it. The rest of it went to administrators or other people or probably powerful people in developing countries who have nice Swiss bank accounts.
That means that in order for us to get aid to somebody, we had to spend all this other money supporting this foreign aid industrial complex. We're going to find more efficient ways to deliver aid to people directly, and it's going to be directed by our regional bureaus, and it's going to sponsor programs that make a difference, and it's going to be part of a holistic approach to our foreign policy. And I look forward.
As is the case with almost everything in government, it is within the bureaucracy that the scam happens.
To engaging with this committee and the appropriators as well, and ensuring that we get to the right place on that. My last point I would make, and this is something I am very proud of. I believe, and I'm not besmirching anyone else, but I believe that the approach we have taken at the State Department, and frankly at USAID, but at State Department, to move forward reforms that involved intake from all of our partners, that required input from people within the building. Many of the reforms we've made were driven by people inside the building, many of whom.
This is an important point that isn't made enough, especially by folks like me, okay, who want things cut, all right, that want smaller government. There are good people in government. It was interesting. I saw, a few months ago, Doge was going through, some of the Social Security stuff, and the fellow that Elon Musk had deemed, in charge of this project, explained that there were great people within the Social Security Administration who were helping them uncover the fraudulent stuff. And no doubt that is the case at state. I've known plenty of great government people, all right? People who are honest, people who want to do the right thing. The problem is the machine is so big and it's so rare that they get the opportunity to actually do some reform. It's a shame, but they have a chance right now.
Have worked there for 20 or 30 years. And now we are engaged with Congress, both in the House and Senate, in a comment period where we're taking many of your comments and are making changes to our organizational proposals that we look forward to bringing back to you with an official congressional notification. And even after that, there'll be an opportunity to move forward. But the State Department had to change. I'm telling you, it was no longer at the center of American foreign policy. It had often been replaced by the National Security Council or by some other agency of government, when in fact we have these highly talented people, many of whom have served in multiple posts around the world and have a holistic view of how foreign policy needs to be conducted, that were being edged out. Because you know what?
Just an aside, many years ago, I actually took the Foreign Service exam and passed it and made it through the second level, made it through the third level, and then we got to like the fourth level or whatever it was. And I could tell that I wasn't going to fit in. I was I wasn't enough of a company man, but I'm sure some good people made it through.
When I get a decision memo early on at the State Department and they would hand me these memos, there were 40 boxes on this piece of paper. That means 40 people had to check off, yes, okay, before it even got to me. That's ridiculous. That takes too long. That's why people said, don't use State Department. They take too long and it's too cumbersome. And any one of those little boxes didn't get checked, the memo didn't move up the chain.
Yeah, it's probably for the best that I didn't work for state.
That can't continue. We can't move at that pace in this world. Events happen quickly, and we have to be able to move at the pace of relevance. And so I hope to work with you in a productive way to make that possible. You're not going to like all the changes, but I want you to know what the intent of the changes are. It is not to dismantle American foreign policy, and it is not to withdraw us from the world. Because I just hit 18 countries in 18 weeks. That doesn't sound like much of a withdrawal. And I see some of these foreign ministers, including individuals from Ukraine, more than I've seen my own children. And I talk to them at least 3 times a week. We are engaged in the world, but we're going to be engaged in a world that makes sense and that's smart. And that isn't about saving money. It is about ensuring that we are delivering to our people what they deserve, a foreign policy that makes America stronger, safer, and more prosperous.
Now, we at Against Crony Capitalism are very rare in our praise of politicians, particularly pretty mainstream politicians like Marco Rubio. But I have to say, he seems sensible. He seems capable. He really it seems like he's made for this role. I personally am quite impressed. I'm also impressed by the deal done between Congo and Rwanda. I think it was penned yesterday. Amazing. A lot of people don't know that there's been a war been going on in Central Africa. It's the bloodiest war post World War II, and most Americans have no idea that it's been going on for years and years and years. I mean, millions and millions and millions of people have died. There are all these minerals down there. The Chinese are involved. We're down there. The French are involved. It's a whole thing. And apparently an agreement was penned at the White House, I think yesterday. That probably has a lot to do with Marco Rubio. So, hey, good on you.